Thank you all for joining our Q&A this evening. As you know, we have 5 panel members who will share their stories and management tips with us. Questions will be asked and each responses will be brief, no more than a couple of minutes. Firstly, a warm welcome and thanks to our guest panel who are at various stages of the Meniere's journey. Let me introduce you to the panel. Richard Rundle, 33 years of Meniere's. Julianne, 28 years. Junran, 5 years. Vicky, 3 years. And Kate, just 1 year. A huge thank you to Regina, who is most of you know. Regina is our webinar administrator and is also the moderator of this panel discussion this morning. Thanks, Regina. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here this evening. I thought since the cost of living is kind of up there in everyone's minds at the moment, that I would start off with the question asking our panelists, are they still working and how has their diagnosis impacted their work? Richard, can I throw to you first, please?
Yeah, sure. I'm post-retirement age, but I did have to retire out of the workforce early in 2010 because my hearing had got so bad that I couldn't continue the work that I was doing. My balance then kicked in and I'd be completely unemployable now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Richard, did you, how long did you manage to continue working up post your initial diagnosis?
25 years.
Okay, so
that's almost a career, yes.
Yeah. No, that's good to know that you did manage to work for a substantial.
I was fortunate. When it was diagnosed, I was in Perth. I was in a senior position. I had qualified support people around me. If I couldn't do something, I could throw it to somebody else most of the time. I also had a private office for the quiet moments that I needed, or the whole afternoon sometimes.
Yeah, so the work.
So I got off light now, I think.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's really good to know. Julianne, can I pass to you next?
Yeah, sure. I was diagnosed in, my Meniere started in 1995 and I was teaching at that time. I started teaching in 1987 or something like that. At first I could teach because my symptoms weren't really severe. And then I kept teaching and then had kids and then had time off with the kids. So I did try to do some supply teaching, but it was really difficult because of with the vertigo and trying to get to school. And then one day I'd go to school and I had a vertigo attack after school and I couldn't get home. 2004, I had gentamicin and I was able to continue teaching until 2013. And then I left because of my really bad hearing. But then in 2019, I went back to teaching again and have been teaching since then until this year. I'm having the year off. So just doing some supply teaching when I can.
So you've been up and down, but you've been able to teach predominantly, continue.
Well, only because of the gentamicin that stopped the vertigo. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been able to continue teaching.
Thank you for sharing that. Junran, you're 5 years in. We've heard from Julianne that at 23 and Richard 33 years in. How has it impacted work for you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Regina, and thanks everyone for joining us this evening. Altogether, since being diagnosed 5 years ago, I have missed 3 to 4 months of work. It wasn't immediate upon diagnosis, but rather 1 year into my Meniere's journey. In hindsight, it was the cumulative mental strain of the oral fullness, the unpredictability of vertigo attacks that about 1 year into Meniere's, I felt I needed some time off to clear my mind before returning to work. I have been working full-time ever since. And with, thankfully, not too many sick leaves in between. That's entirely because I was very lucky in getting the medical help I had, and you know, the likes of Professor Gibson and the medication prescribed. But yeah, but to answer your question, the impact is about 3 to 4 months of work.
In a total of 5 years since
Yes.
diagnosis. So that's, yeah, again, that's positive to hear that you've been able to maintain work. So that's fantastic. Vicky, what's been your experience with work?
Well, I started getting really big vertigo attacks back in 2017 when I was heavily using my computer and scoring my music work. I'm a composer, and so I'd have to stop doing that, but then I'd force myself to keep going. And actually, I really haven't stopped working because I found ways that I can use the computer. And after having had all my vestibular therapy and trying to control my dizziness, which I also have PPPD, which is persistent perceptual postural vertigo. So I'm kind of always dizzy, but I've learned to control that. But no, I've been able to just, I'm lucky. I've been able to get through it, and just in times between having really full ear and then the vertigo, I'm sort of manageable. So I've been really lucky.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's good to hear. And Kate, and
Hi.
you into your journey. It's only been a year, so
Yeah.
your experience was.
Yeah, thank you. I have been quite lucky. I can actually work from home and in the office as well. So I do have that option, and I work in a very supportive environment as well. So yeah, I haven't found it. It's stressful when you do have to take time off work, obviously, but I have a supportive place of work. So I feel quite okay with work. I've only had vertigo once at work, and because my husband works with me, he could actually take me home. So that's, yeah, so it's been okay for me. I feel very fortunate in my position.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's really positive to hear. And I think because Junren touched on that, I think I'll jump straight into mental health, because that seems to be one of the things that people often comment about, is they'll find they have, the initial anxiety and fear when you get diagnosed, or when you're unwell and you haven't been diagnosed yet. So Richard, I'll loop back to you. How did the diagnosis impact your mental health, especially because you were 33 years ago? So treatment's come a long way. So yeah, and what strategies did you use to help support yourself?
Well, my onset was largely deafness led, and then vertigo and balance issues. But frankly, back then, you were sat down. I had an ENT in Perth, perfect, polite person, but he said, "This is what you've got. Deal with it," basically. People didn't openly discuss mental health in the late 80s, early 90s, particularly any relation to work. It would maybe a confidential chat to HR, but even that wouldn't have been happening back then. So no, I was in it for myself and my supportive wife. But again, I was fortunate in that, I wasn't working in a call center or something like that, or a young mother with 3 kids. We don't have children. So we have far less stress in our lives. I had an interesting and rewarding job, and so I didn't have a lot of anxiety, and I could manage my time off. So again, no striving to make a dollar to cover the basics. For some years now.
Yeah, no, that's great, and wonderful to hear your wife was so supportive as well. Because yeah, like you say, there wasn't a lot of mental health support in those days. Julianne, what was your experience?
It's same with no mental health support at all. Went to the ENT. He wouldn't diagnose me for 5 years, even though I had the symptoms. He was trying to work out whether I had MS or Meniere's. it was a wait and see what symptoms pop up. Yeah, and that there was just nothing. It was like, you can have Stemetil, you can try a diuretic, and there was no conversation about mental health. I kept everything to myself, especially when I went down the dark path, when the symptoms kicked in really badly. My mum kept saying to me all the time, you never smile with your eyes anymore. And that's because she didn't know what was going on inside.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a very rough journey for
Yeah,
you.
it was.
Mm.
That's why I try and help people.
Yeah.
That's my motivator.
Wonderful. Junren, you touched on that earlier, that you were you had the opportunity to take a few months off work when you realized it was having a toll on your mental health. Do you want to elaborate any more on that?
Yeah, certainly. And looking back, the mental side of things it's been quite a curious trajectory. Right at the beginning, knowing that I have Meniere's, it's shock. In increasing orders of magnitude is the hearing loss. I was in my 20s at the time still. And then there's the vertigo attacks, which the ferocity is of the like I've never experienced before. And I think the worst of the shock was the fact that there is no definitive cure, that we can't just roll the tape backwards and all this will be gone. So that was at the initial stage. And over the next year or so, it did become very challenging indeed, mainly because when really do not know for sure how bad it could be. Will I reach the burnout stage soon? Will this be in remission? If so, how likely is a recurrence? Having said that, I have to say over time, I am quite imperceptibly, just the fact that I have Meniere's and going to work, commuting to work, getting through a full day of work, coming home is quite a greater challenge than usual. And the fact that one keeps doing that day in and day out, over time, it has strengthened, I would say, my mental resilience. So the usual things about work pressure and the like that may affect someone else do not quite impact me in the same way, because in comparison to an 8-hour vertigo attack, it's really rather trivial. And so, yeah, so that's not something I had in mind or consciously experienced at the time, but looking back now, I would say I'm a lot calmer and just putting things in its proper perspective because of this journey, this experience with Meniere's.
That's great that you've actually managed to flip it around and see it as like it's something that you've learned and grown through. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Vicky, how just that how's it impacted your mental health and what strategies have you used?
Well, I mean, that awful initial sort of despair that you have when you have an incurable condition that feels so absolutely horrendous. You can't escape from it except when you have a few good days. I guess I felt really like I was letting a lot of people down as well, like because my husband suddenly has to care for me, and there's that worry and stress and guilt about that, even though it's not your fault. And I recently had become a grandmother, and I couldn't be with my daughter and help with the kids. I couldn't even drive anymore. Basically just had to stay at home. Lucky I have my work, so that's the thing that keeps me actually happy. And just learning, having learned a lot of those strategies of being in the moment and brain plasticity to try and just sort of flip things around. So yeah, I've learned the guilt hasn't gone away. I still feel sort of like useless because I'm not like being all those things a woman is, that my age is, my kids, my grandkids, my elderly mother still is 97 and I can't get to see her very much. So there's all of that sort of thing that you have weighing on you, but you learn to appreciate when it's good. It's great. It's like just try and live every moment that you don't have you know, this horrible weight on you and this, yeah, an attack. So yeah, I think I don't know what's coming. I've no idea. So
Technically, none of us know what's coming.
no.
Yeah, you can, yeah, as we've all learned, something can just happen. So, and everyone in reality is kind of, yeah, none of us know what's definitely ahead, regardless of if you've got many hairs or not. So yeah, but that's a lovely attitude to have to it. Appreciate everything that you've got when it's good. So Kate, what's been your journey? You're so new into it. It's only 1 year.
Yeah. Look, it's been pretty stressful because obviously, you know, a huge life change, and also accepting that it is what it is, essentially, and learning new things, new ways to cook, dietary, stress levels, going out, traveling, getting to know, for me, when it happens to me, the stages of it, and that's getting a bit more easier so that I can navigate that. And I believe that some of my episodes actually have been caused by stress. I am starting to learn all of that, and just trying to manage it. But I have a very supportive husband, but I do understand that level of guilt as well, because he's adapting to my new eating and things like that, and going out, and just lifestyle changes, and also explaining it to people, because I didn't know what it was when I was diagnosed. So it's all those kind of little stresses, and yeah, but I've just been trying to manage it by not stressing. But does that mean you stress more when you try not to stress? Anyway, go round and round. But yeah.
Oh no, thank you for that. And yeah, fabulous to hear you've got a supportive husband. So and I think that leads me into my next question, which was, what has changed most in your life since diagnosis? Like, how has it impacted your relationships, either positively or negatively? And what tips do you have for the rest of us to think about for, so maybe we'll split it into two parts, like how's it impacted your relationship? So Richard, you already mentioned you had a supportive wife.
Yeah,
that's positive or negative impacts?
That has continued for me, thank goodness. Friendships with other people have suffered dramatically. I think over time, people get absolutely sick and tired of this idiot giving stupid responses to questions, stepping in and talking while they're still talking to you, thinking that they're finished. You can become rather boorish if you're deaf. I went through such a succession of hearing aids. I think I've spent $70,000 on hearing aids because I'm bilateral and have been all the time. And also, given the expectation, I was told on my first diagnosis, this is a 12-year disease, it will burn out. You will be deaf, but all the other symptoms will have gone. And so that's made it extremely difficult to keep up personal friendships. And the learning experience from that is find those friendships wherever they are. Now there's the internet, which makes a huge difference. There are quite a few support groups, but not enough. So if you've got the skill to do it, I think there's a lot to be learned by helping others go through the same experience and running some good meetings. I'm envious of Julianne and others who've got access to, and Anne in particular in Sydney, all the access to the guest speakers. I ran a group here in Ballarat for 10 years. It's been going for 20. But we did, every time I'd suggest, oh, let's get so-and-so to speak. Oh, we've had her twice. You know, and people will only come up from Melbourne if you've got 50 people to speak to. And I couldn't offer that. So get out there and get involved. I joined Meniere's Australia, ended up on the board whilst it was in its demise. It was still an important thing to do to try and help at that time. Next person, please.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's great that you, like, I love some of your strategies about helping others and, valuing those friendships that stand the test of time. So yeah, no, thank you for that. Julianne.
Yeah, if I can remember the question, I'll see how I go.
Yeah, no, it's
I just
how
get
has your life
I get-
changed?
Yeah.
What has changed most in your life since diagnosis? How has it impacted your relationship positively or negatively? If there's any tips.
Okay, so I was 28 when my Meniere started. It was before I had my 3 kids, so I've been through all of this with my kids as well. I had some really well set friendships before that, friendship groups. They were really tolerant of me. I think it was me who was more standoffish, and I felt it more that when I was missing conversations and everything like that. My husband has been absolutely brilliant. My parents would drop everything to come and help as well. Yeah, it's just, everything just changes. Like, yeah, the world around you changes and the way you see it. And the things that used to be really big things now became really small things compared to the vertigo. So, yeah. But, you know, I got through that. I had the gentamicin, and my life is far more enriched and rewarding for going all through that. So if I had to go back, I don't think I'd change a thing. Even though the journey's been traumatic and hard, I would not change a thing.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's great to hear, actually, that you can reflect on it.
Yeah.
From that perspective, 23 years down the track.
28, yep.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah, because you weren't diagnosed for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got you now.
Yeah.
Children, would you like to share what's changed most in your life since diagnosis and the impact it's had on your relationships?
Yes. Well, for the second part of the question, mine is very concise. Thankfully, I cannot detect any changes in my relationship to, say, my family or my friends. There is quite a lot of that, I would say, is due to advances in hearing aid. I got a hearing aid very, very early at the first sign of hearing loss, and been using that every day ever since. And it takes a bit of practice, especially in crowded restaurants, but over time, just by going back to the audiologist, regularly tuning the hearing aid, monitoring the hearing level, that has been immeasurably helpful. For the first part of the question, without being hyperbolic about it, literally every aspect of the life has changed, and just the way I would take care of my health, directions in life, without going too much detail, but my whole career changed. That I was working in finance before, and now I'm working in a medical field. And that's because of having many years. I wanted to be closer to, as it were, the front line of medical research. I try to go out in the sense I'm big time introvert, but now I do volunteering work on the weekend at hospitals and the like, and it's all because of the help I received when I was a patient and still a patient, the doctors I met along the way. So now it's having that desire to give back. So these 5 years, many years, has touched upon every aspect of my life.
It sounds like it's actually been a really positive impact on your life. You say,
I certainly wouldn't say 3 weeks ago when I was in the middle of a BPPB,
no, but
circling around, but yes.
Brought a lot of good things into your life as well. You would, because you've gone down the science track, you wouldn't have gone down that beforehand if it wasn't for Meniere.
Oh, yes, indeed. And I can trace that back to one remark that Professor Gibson, I think, casually mentioned in one of the webinars, I believe, and it's that there's a propensity in a mutation. I think it was chromosome 3. I apologize if I misremembered. And it was just the idea of having some kind of genetic predisposition to Meniere. And that's a fascinating idea. I wanted to explore more. And so now I'm working in genomics. In the area of cancer research, so not quite Meniere, but quite related, I would say. Yeah.
No, that's fascinating. That's taken you on quite the journey. Vicky, what's changed most in your life since diagnosis, and what's been the impact on your relationships?
Well, I haven't had the problem of deafness that some of the other people I guess it's happening very slowly. My left ear's, I'm losing a lot of the bottom end, which is really hard. I can't mix my music in stereo anymore because it's a different sound in the one stereo channel. But that's all right. I have my husband mixes music for me now. He's like the rock of my life. He's an artist as well. He's a musician as well. So he's working with me on my my new project. But we're pretty insular. We just sort of I at home a lot, and all my relationships are basically online. And I think also with my line of work, which is solitary anyway, because I'm writing, but then I burst into masses of groups of people with my theatre productions, which happened before COVID. And then the whole theatre industry stopped. So we all started doing things online. So I had readings with friends and actors online, and then made more relationships through that, and recently had another table read. So I'm just, my life is very rich because I'm allowed to be safe in my little environment and still be sharing with people and, you know, creating things. But I have to say, if I have to go somewhere like a family dinner or somewhere, I don't go to restaurants or anything anymore, but that's also because of COVID. But the sound, I can't sit at a dinner table because the sound of the cutlery and everything is just, you know, terribly unsettling, and people talking a lot. I use a loop ear piece of noise cancelling earpod. That's as far as I'm up to. I hope it doesn't all get really bad to come down the years, but yeah, it stopped me having close relationships probably with my siblings, because we don't have so many family get-togethers because I can't go and things like that. And yeah, as I said, I don't see my grandkids that much because I get very dizzy around them. And what else? I think that's probably.
Yeah, no, that's
I always think of something else when you've moved on to somebody else.
that's okay. That's all right. Kate, how has it impacted your life? I know you're only a very short time down the journey, but you know, you've noticed an impact on your life and your relationships?
With regards to relationships, not really, but because people have been pretty understanding, I have to say, and if I can't do things, I can't do things. If I'm not going out, I'm not going out. I've kind of adjusted to that, and it hasn't really impacted me too much. It's kind of changed my life in ways where it's been most impactful is that it's interrupted IVF for me on a number of occasions, and it's kind of been like circular, really, where the stress of that could trigger episodes, but then sometimes my medications trigger episodes as well, and it's limited me from in the last year of having, you know, going ahead with my IVF. It hasn't stopped me. I'm still going ahead, but it does play a role in treatment for me and the future, what that looks like for me in the future. So that's mostly been my focus, and that's why the peripheral stuff for me has kind of just, I've let that play out.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. The next thing I thought I'd move on to is physical health, because I've heard in some of these sessions, people, you know, we've had all sorts of different people with, you know, the exercise physiologists and things, and saying, you know, use it or lose it with, you know, and there's the different rehabs that we can do. So I was going to say, how has it impacted your initial health, your physical health initially, and then how has that changed over time? And then, you know, sort of looking at strategies, because always trying to find the ways we can help each other and share our knowledge. So Richard, would you be kind enough to share how it's impacted your physical health and sort of what strategies you've used to maintain your physical health over time?
Initially, I was playing a lot of tennis, breaking a lot of bones, falling over. So I always had this off-balance thing. There was no concept of vestibular rehab back then. Frankly, I did nothing to start with. I didn't do rehab until I had my first cochlear implant in 2013, when I went to the INE hospital in Melbourne, and they introduced me to the concept. That helped initially. There's no doubt that everyone should have a go at that. But because I was bilateral and having some other things as well, they graduated me and said, we really can't do much more to help you. They gave me some strategies to keep me safer, but it hasn't stopped. Things like last year I had a fall and broke my leg. I'm just completely out of the blue. Mainly I'd been able to avoid that sort of stuff happening, but so just remind you that it's still got you in its sights, the little devil that it is. Now, unfortunately, my balance is such that I use walking aids outside the house and now inside the house as well. And quite a bit of the time, I have to touch a surface somewhere to keep upright because I'm quite immobile. So walking is completely out of the question now. So I've swapped over and I use a pedal exerciser that I can use sitting down. I go to exercise physiology 3 times a week, supervised half-hour sessions, where we do what we can depending on how I am on the day. And I find very supportive people in that industry. I'm very fortunate to have NDIS support at it for 5 years. And if you can get access to that, it can make a huge difference because we have a gardener, we have someone come in and help in the house. Taxes to some money for taxis. So when you can't drive, that's available as a strategy. And my plan is relatively modest by most people's standards. But if it's really impacting your life, push in there and ask for an assessment and see what you can do with that.
No, that's a great tip. Thank you. Julianne.
Yeah, before many years, I had a very healthy lifestyle, food-wise, and sport was my passion through high school and even into my 20s. Yeah, so getting Meniere and sort of losing a bit of that confidence of being able to play sport like I used to really hit me. Yeah, and it wasn't too bad. And then I had gentamicin in 2004, so it wiped out half my balance. So I had to relearn to walk using my eyesight. There was no vestibular rehabilitation back then. It was, there you go, off you go. My kids were 8, 6, and 5. And so the next day after my gentamicin, I just had to cope with it and get on with my day. So I had some bouncy vision and I just had to cope with it. I didn't have any balance rehabilitation until vestibular rehabilitation. Let me try that again. I didn't have any vestibular rehabilitation until I got my cochlear implant in 2019. I didn't even know it was a thing. And it was so good. I didn't have daily nausea. I could turn my head like this. When I first started, I couldn't do heel to toe for 2 steps without falling over. After 3 weeks, I could do heel to toe steps and not fall over after 100 steps. So it was amazing. Yeah, but yeah, you keep doing things. You don't stop. You just got to keep pushing forward. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. That's great to hear. It sounds like both of you have had really great outcomes with the vestibular rehab.
Yeah.
Junren, how's it impacted your physical health and what strategies have you tried?
Yeah, I certainly echo what Julian just said at the end there. Well, my one piece of advice to others living with Menieres and with respect to physical exercise is try to do something, but listen to your body. By that, I mean, for example, one had in the aftermath of a BPPV episode in the last couple of weeks, the most I could do was walking, and I did not push myself to do anything beyond that. And over time, one thing that I learned is to detect warning signals. That is to say, if I sense oral fullness increasing in its intensity, if there's more tension headache than usual, then I would correspondingly scale back my physical exercise. So on the other hand, if I am feeling well, then I do try to push myself. So it's about paying very close attention to one's body. The exercises I find incredibly helpful are those focusing on flexibility as well as balance exercises. So when I'm feeling well, things like lunges. When I first was being diagnosed, I was very wobbly, as I think many of us would have experienced. But over time, the brain does retrain itself. It does get better from exercise like lunges. And the flexibility is really connected to the mental side as well, because all the deep breathing, it relaxes the body, and that I would like to think decreases the chance of a future vertigo attacks, and that helps.
Yeah, I can so relate to that. I initially started walking in water because then I didn't have to worry if I got wobbly because I was in water, and that was a big game changer to build up my confidence. Thank you for that. Vicky, would you like to share with us how it's impacted your physical health and any strategies you've used?
Yeah, I agree with John. And everyone, you just have to keep at that level of some kind of fitness because you know how important your body is to keep you upright. And I'd been doing Pilates for 20 years, and then I moved and I couldn't keep doing that anymore, but I tried to do aerobic things. But with the Meniere's diagnosis, I couldn't keep up really hard aerobics at all. So I find I just do really sort of gentle things. I go for a walk every day, about 45 minutes, except when I can't, and then I don't, it doesn't matter. And I do these, I have this great little app on my phone, which has these little 5-minute dance routines, and you can, Bollywood, hip hop, all these kinds of things. So it's like, great, if I can do one of those little, I've done some cardio, I've done a little bit of, strengthening. I do some little therabands, try and do some strengthening things. And I just also wanted to go back to the question about stress, because I think Kate was talking about the stress. Yeah, stress is a huge factor for me, and it's almost like a physical thing, like, the thought of preparing for mostly doctor's appointments. I hate having my blood taken, or even a hearing test. I hate it. And I get, I find this stress wells up, and you can almost feel your ears sort of starting to go like a puffer fish. And so it's, I'm measuring my stress output in terms of spoonfuls. And like washing this frizzy hair of mine actually takes about 4 spoonfuls. And if you've got like 12 per day, I mean, for instance, you sort of measure out what you can do. And I just find that, like, if I'm learning, it's really hard, but I'm learning to, when I've done too much, say cooking, you just sort of start feeling that, that's too much. I have to learn to stop and just take a little break, and then you can start again. If you don't follow that advice, and I guess it's the same with any, level of exercises or activity or anything, stop when it's too much.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great strategy. And like to say, exercise can help alleviate stress. So it's great that you found something fun, like your little dance. I'm quite keen to find out more about that dance app. And you said you've got some things that you use that are helpful. So later on, if you can share them in the chat, we can share them with everyone as well. So that's fantastic. Kate, what about you? I know you've already talked about it impacting your IVF, but has there any other physical ways it's impacted, and do you have any strategies?
I guess I am the same as others, like listening to my body and exercising when it feels good and feels right too, is what I try and do at the moment. I'm trying not to be too much in my head about it, and I'm trying to just like go through it. And if I can't exercise that day, that's cool. If I am the next day, and I'm trying to do exercising that I actually enjoy. Like, I don't want to go out there and punish myself just because. Like, I do try and do things that are more mindful as well. And yeah, just definitely listening to my body and what's going on that day, because yeah, the balance is an issue. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. That's some great strategies there, because you've all said, like, there's been that recurring thing about giving yourself permission to rest and stop, listening to your body, things like walking, even, you know, having to relearn to walk, listening, looking at that flexibility and balance, doing things you enjoy, and then like being mindful. So there's some, you know, great list of strategies. And it sounds like vestibular rehab has been a game changer that's been around fairly recently, but great to know that it is available to all of us moving forward. And thank you, Richard, for sharing that tip about potentially tapping into the NDIS as we get further down that journey, and potentially it impacts us more physically. So I thought, just conscious we're getting near the end, I wanted to say, is that what have you learned new about yourself during this journey? Like, what has been the thing that you've learned most? Is that, like, have you found you've got an inner strength? Have you worked out what matters most in your life? Has it impacted how you value life and perspectives? Richard?
Yeah, I mean, Meniere isn't the only thing that's happened to me in my life.
Exactly. Yeah.
I managed to have a heart attack at age 46.
Oh, wow.
Which was just terrific fun at the time, but I got through that. I got mugged in 2009, working in Kazakhstan, and spent 14 weeks in hospital with 2 operations on my spine. So I sort of say to myself that I've learned patience, I've learned resilience. I know that I can get through this. You don't never know how long each particular hurdle is going to take to learn to deal with, but you can get through it. I've also seen in myself and others the role that anxiety plays, and it needs to be much higher profile, looked at professionally, and if we need some chemical help to deal with the anxiety, to break the cycle of worsening vertigo, more anxiety, higher stress, and it's just a dreadful treadmill. And however you're able to break it, and at least have a break from it, even if it comes back, to know that actually a break is possible is a window of hope for you. So I've learned you can do this, you'll be right.
That's a wonderful philosophy to have, and such a positive outlook to have. So thank you for sharing that. Julianne.
Yeah, I'm sort of kind of jealous of people who got Meniere's just, you know, in the last 5-7 years, because I know what the research is being done now, sort of know what's coming up. Compared to when I had Meniere's, there's no cause, no cure, no help. There was nothing. So I just think the future is exciting for people with Meniere's now, and because I've been through all of that really dark period, some really good things are coming. But I think I learned kindness to other people. You don't know their story. You don't know how bad their Meniere's is. Be kind to everyone. And you don't know, like we all fake being well. You don't know how much they're struggling. So always have empathy and always be kind and help as much as you can. Yeah, and for me, it's all about mindset as well for myself, and not to compare myself to other people, because even though we've all got Meniere's, all of our journeys are different. So just, yeah, kindness is at the very top of it all. Yeah.
No, that's lovely. That's such a positive, lovely approach to take to it. Junren.
Well, the first and foremost thing I learned from Meniere is an appreciation to how lucky I am, the love of my family, and to be diagnosed exactly as Julian said at this time in history, that with the medication that we have, with the hearing aids that we have, and Meniere has been a terrible thing, of course. At the same time, just the people I've encountered, I still remember the GP who first gave me the indication that this was Meniere's, spending 2 hours with me on a Friday evening to going through his notebooks and his training materials, etc., and looking for ENT surgeons for me. And yeah, this has been having the privilege to meet some exceptional people along the way. Yeah, that's my main takeaway from it. And indeed, I think we should all be quite optimistic about the future outlook of this illness. So much progress has already been made. The cure still rather elusive, but I do believe we're getting closer.
No, thank you, Junren. That's great to see that you've actually can see it as something that you're lucky, because it's brought so many amazing things into your life. And it's so lovely to hear you had such a caring doctor when you first got diagnosed, because not a lot of people have had that experience. So yeah, you are very lucky. Vicky, what have you learned about yourself on this journey?
Something also that somebody else said, that to learn that you can get through it, that you can, that resilience to, even though you know you're going through some kind of hell, that it's going to pass and you will have some good days. And also I've learned to be very proactive and find solutions, because my doctors didn't really tell me anything. He said, you have Meniere's and don't eat salt. So I've kind of enjoyed learning new skills, learning new ways to cook, and just learning all these different things that can help. Sorry, Julianne. Yeah, and I guess also a greater understanding and probably, I guess empathy as well. I think Junren said that, because everybody's got something. Just realizing, like, it's almost like, when you have something, a condition or something, you suddenly start seeing lots more people with other things and the same as you, and it's like everyone's got something. So we all carry these burdens with us. So it's not. I don't feel that it's that special that I have Meniere's, so that's what I have. Someone else lost their legs, someone else, we all, so we're all humans trying to fight through this life and make the best of it we can and try and enjoy every moment.
No, thank you. That's again a really positive approach to it. And Kate, again, no, you're only early in this journey, but what have you discovered about yourself?
Cool. Definitely resilience, but also just a lot of I always said I do it, but I don't think I did until now, which is like self-care and just accepting help when you need it and asking for help if you need it, and just things like that, and just being okay with it, like just acceptance as well on a different level.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. And I have to say, I've just sort of been making notes of what you've all been saying, and it's been so many positive things come out of that, looking at being lucky, open up opportunities to meet you know, some exceptional people, patients, people getting excited about the future. Like you've all mentioned that, you know, there's so much that's moving forward with treatment. I mean, just the vestibular feet rehab sounds like a game changer. And then the empathy and kindness and resilience, that's just been a recurring one that I've heard everyone mention, is resilience, and realizing the inner strength that you have. Yeah, I think Richard's tip about anxiety, and because, you know, we've recognized that stress can impact, you know, Vicky's talked about, you know, her spoonfuls of stress that you can have. So it's, you know, recognizing, using some strategies. And if you do need help with anxiety, knowing that there are different things you can access out there, and maybe it is that you do for a time need to have some medication to help with that. But yeah, there is hope, and there is a lot of different opportunities out there at the moment. So yeah, I think that's kind of, I'm conscious we've come to time. There's been a bit of conversation in the chat just around medication, but tonight we were very much focusing on life generally. So just, that was the key focus of tonight's session, was looking at, you know, your mental health, your physical health, your relationships, your work. So I hope that's been beneficial. Are there any other questions that anyone wanted to ask before we conclude?
I'm not a question, but can I just say how wonderful our Meniere's community is in supporting each other, especially Dizzy's Down Under, that like, it's just brilliant how supportive everybody is. And when people ask a question, people try and help. And yeah, I think it's a key component to helping each other get through what we're going through. So yeah, thank you to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Maddie, I love that you still ride a skateboard at 49. Yep. I still go to punk gigs and I'm 55, nearly 56. So yeah, keep going and keep doing what you love. Thank you for that comment in chat. And then, as I said earlier, Vicky said she had some great resources that she uses. So Anne can share them afterwards. I mean, I love that dance app that you were talking about.
I'll just put a link to some things in the chat. Hang on.
Yeah, and we can copy that and send that to everyone afterwards as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of our panelists. Is there anything you thought of post all those questions that you went,
Yes,
oh,
I've got
Richard
one.
said that. Oh, thank you, Richard.
Don't be afraid of the deafness. The cochlear implant at the end makes you wish that you'd had it 15 years earlier.
Oh, wow.
It is such a game change.
Yeah.
And to be bilateral cochlear implant and hear better than I had for 30 years is a reinvention. Okay, I still mishear things at times, but a hell of a lot better than I was before.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. That is, and I think that might be one of the things that with a lot of people talk about, the fear of losing their hearing, that ability to communicate. But I've got so many friends in the music scene, and many of them are losing their hearing just from industrial deafness. So yeah, the fact that we live in an age where we do have cochlear implants, I think, again, is another positive thing, that we're so fortunate to be in this time. And as Junran shared, the research, he's sounding so optimistic about the future. So anyone else who'd like to add anything before I hand back to Anne to conclude the session of our panelists? Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Anne, I'll hand back to you.
Thanks a lot, Regina. That was absolutely wonderful. Really great questions, great responses, very positive. Really, this has come out better than what I thought it would be. Thank you, everybody. Really, thank you for all the panelists and Regina. It's been really very, very good. We're really happy with this, and hope everybody walks away with something they can take with them. Thank you, everyone. Good night.